Charlotte Alford.
My entire name given to me, and it's on my birth certificate, is Paulette Paula Puakinaumu Hannah Pangpua.
My name is Robert Moore.
Yes, I have two. Karen and Devin, your father.
One daughter, Melis Hualani Moore.
I have one daughter. Her name's Melis. That's Willali's mommy. Okay, and my daughter Melis has always been a joy to me. It's always been a joy. Very seldom has she ever given me any pause or unhappiness. Her biggest happiness she gave me was my granddaughter, Ulali.
Yes, you, Hulali, Grace.
One grandchild, Hulali. I forgot what is Hulali's middle name? Grace. Hulali Grace Alford.
I have one granddaughter, and she is the love of my life. Her name is Hulali Alford. Hulali Grace Alford, and she's full of grace, fair of face, and I call her Naomi. You want to know what Naomi means? A nice, neat assemblage of molecules indeed.
I was a secretary for AT&T.
I was a school teacher for 34 years with the Department of Education, State of Hawaii.
I was born in Hartford, Connecticut, and I was raised in Connecticut. My father was a milkman, and in the early days he drove a horse-drawn buggy and delivered milk. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. They did that more in those days than we do today, and as a result we were very poor because we were living on a milkman's salary.
I was born in Honolulu in Alewa Heights. I was raised, the early part of my life was spent at 666 Kaka'ako Street, my grandmother's house. Then I lived also in right below Kamehameha School, Alewa Heights. And then from Alewa Heights, we moved to Pearl City.
Okay, my childhood, my earliest recollections, I think, were, I think I was probably around, certainly preschool. I think it was 3 years old or so. And we lived on Crater Road. Crater Road is in Kaimaki, and it's right next to Diamond Head. It's kind of on the slopes of Diamond Head. And I recall it was a two-story house, and my mom was working for Leahi Hospital, so it was just a matter of climbing over a couple of stone walls and such for her to get to work. And then I went to Epiphany Church for kindergarten, first grade. Went to Thomas Jefferson in Waikiki for second grade. And then Iolani in Kaimaki, which was an English standard school, for third grade through sixth grade. After that, Kamehameha, which I stayed until I graduated high school.
My husband is in the class below me. I graduated in 1952. He graduated in 1953. So I married a younger man. Shame on me, yeah. Rock the cradle. Go. When we were at Kamehameha, he was eyeball to eyeball with me. And so we get used to waved to each other. But then when he went in the Navy and returned, he shot up, and then he got bigger and broader. Could have. Right, Papa? Navy chow made you big and strong, yeah, Papa? Well, he used to come, my husband used to come over the house because he was friends with my sister. And then my sister went to the mainland to get a job. And he still used to come over. So one night, there was a good movie at Waipahu. And I think I asked him, why don't we go to a movie? And we went to a movie in Waipahu, and he fell heads over heels in love with me. Right, Papa?
What?
You fell in love with me when we went to the movie at Waipahu. Right, Papa?
Right. What movie was that?
Huh? What a weak right.
My son was living here with his wife, and Devin insisted that I move here. So I did. And I was glad I did. My brother and I spent our summers on our grandfather's dairy farm. And it was a great event to go to the deli and buy some sugar for my grandmother. It was a long walk, and we also bought 2 sodas, 2 cold sodas. And we came back with them, and we delivered our sugar to the grandmother, and sat down on a pile of hay and blew out a piece of hay and used it for a straw in the sodas, and that was a big event. Today we buy soda frequently. That was a big event for us. And our summers in the farm, and that was the height of our life. We went on long walks, and I loved to gather wildflowers. And we had a camera. We took pictures of each other. And I loved to play baseball. But I didn't love it when I got a little bit older and I had to wear glasses because they made me take my glasses off. And the ball would become flying and they'd say, "Catch it, Charlotte, catch it." And I couldn't see it. So I'd miss it. As you get older, time goes fast. But when you're young, when you're a child, time is like an eternity. The summers were long, so we had fun.
But we used to go visit my grandma, my sister and I. And my sister was a year and a half, a couple of months older than I, on Maui. And we used to take the Hualalai, which was a inter-island steamship, and you'd catch it at 7 o'clock at night, get rocked to sleep on the passage over to Maui, and get there in the morning. We used to spend summers with my grandma in Wailuku. And my grandfather was pure Japanese. And although he and my grandma had eight children, she never learned how to speak Japanese, and he never learned how to speak English. But I guess they had their communications methods okay. Funny thing, my grandma had I think probably was about a two or three bedroom house, and my sister and I stayed in one bedroom. And my grandfather used to sleep on the floor, which is, I guess, what you call on a tatami mat, whatever's, and with a wooden pillow behind his head. It looked so much very uncomfortable. But he used to lie there on the floor after drinking his sake and snore, and have a good sleep, and then he'd go off to the plantation in the morning. He was the milkman for the plantation, so he was in charge of all the cows and such, milking them and supplying the plantation camp with fresh milk. I spent a great deal of my youth with my Uncle Dan. My Uncle Dan, the Kanilua, was from Waipio Valley on the Big Island. And I used to hang out with him a lot. he and Auntie May were childless. Auntie May was my mom's sister, but they were childless, so they used to take me with them, my sister Carol and I, wherever they went. Now I was a towhead. I was completely blonde as a kid, and so when they used to wheel me around in the little perambulator, I guess, they thought it quite funny that people thought that they were the servants for the white folks, and they were taking care of a little white boy. Okay, they always got a bit of a charge for that. But my uncle Dan was someone who treated me so well during my youth. When he went and got new shoes, we'd go into the Conahisa store, he'd buy himself a pair of strollers. I would get a pair of strollers. When he went down to the Hotel Street to the silent barber shop, I went to the silent barber shop. When he got a new shirt, I got a new shirt. Okay, and he had a sweet tooth, thank goodness, because my sister Carol and I were always plied with ice cream, which was neat.
My tutu's house was 666 Kaka'ako Street. Next to my tutu's house were two restaurant bars, Maggie's Inn and Kaka'ako Cafe. So the sailors used to, when they were on leave, they used to, or maybe in the evening, they used to go to Maggie's Inn and also Kaka'ako Cafe, and they used to drink. And one day we had a big family party. We had a luau, and the luau was in the empty lot. And so we kids were out on the sidewalk. We were playing on the sidewalk. And this sailor came. He was kind of drunk. And he kept looking at us playing. And then he could hear my uncle and them singing at the party. And, you know, everybody was laughing and having a good time. And he just kept looking over there. So our cousin asked him, "Where you from?" And he said, "Oh, I'm on a ship." And then he said, looks like you children are having fun. And then my cousin said, my uncle started to sing and they were laughing. And my cousin said, "You want to go to our party?" And the poor, because he just kept looking at it. And he said, "No." And then we said, "No, you can come." And I said, "Yeah, my tutu said anybody can come to her party." And so Grampy ran in and was telling, "I have one friend. Can I bring my friend into the party?" And when it was a sailor, so we brought the sailor in. And then my two younger uncles stopped singing and looked at the sailor. My mother and her sisters went up to welcome the sailor, and my oldest Uncle Joe told the sailor, come and join our family. Us kids, meanwhile, were pulling him in, right? Come. We got plenty food. And then Uncle Joe looked at our two younger uncles, Uncle Dyke and Uncle Bonnie. They did not seem happy. And Uncle Joe said, "Mama said, everyone is welcome to our table." And as soon as Uncle Joe said, "Mama said," now Mama was our grandmother, everybody put their head down and shook their head and said, "Come in." Because my grandmother was that way. Anybody who was hungry was welcome to her house to eat, as long as you eat. So the sailor came in. We think he was a sailor, we don't know. Anyway, he came in and he sat down, and the kids, us kids were over there. And Uncle Joe went and talked to him, and my auntie served him. And then later on, he listened to the music. And then later on, he said, "I have to go back." So he thanked Uncle Joe.
And he thanked us kids. And then he left.
Ghost story is about the White Lady. I was working as an engineer, and we just happened to be in Okinawa on Mount, I think it was Yutaki, something. Anyhow, it was a very cold and windy night. It was raining. We're coming down. There's no lights. And I'm with this young man. His name was Bill Gibson. No, Bill Gibson lived in the Philippines with his wife and children. He was expat. He was a U.S. citizen. But they lived in Manila, and I think he worked in a place called San Pedro. San Pedro, as I recall, was a cable station, and the cable went between the Philippines, undersea cable, and the cable went between the Philippines and Vietnam. And so he was coming home one night from his workstation going back to Manila, and he was driving a Volkswagen, Volkswagen Bug. And it was going through forests and such, and overgrown, and like a tropical rainforest, I guess, almost, with a road cut through it. And he said he happened to see something while he was driving out of the corner of his eye. And he looked over there, and he saw this woman. And he looked down to see if she was on a motorcycle or something, because she was keeping abreast with him. And there was no motorcycle. And said she was dark complected, but he couldn't see her eyes. And she was completely dressed in white. And what he saw then was just kind of a disembodied personage keeping him company through the dark woods. He was very frightened. He pulled off the road and almost cracked up into a tree. And when he looked around, he was all alone. And so he got himself back on the road, and he said he pressed the gas, and he was tearing down this pathway, looking for the nearest barrio. Okay, a little village that they have, I guess, spaced around over there, where people live and work and such. And he saw something in front of him on the road coming down toward him, and it was this lady. And she came up right into his windshield and looked at him. And he said he was petrified, scared. He closed his eyes and kept on driving. And when he opened his eyes, she was gone. And so when he got to the barrier, he said he was so shook up, he stayed there until daybreak. And he asked the people there, about this lady. And they said, oh yeah, she's the White Lady. She lost both her sons during the war. And so every stranger who comes down this road, she goes up and she examines and see if it's her sons. So apparently they were quite familiar with her, and weren't much bothered by it all. And so that's the White Lady story.
I think it's important to be honest, but not brutally so. I think it's important to be friendly when it's appropriate, and take an interest in other people. Think less about ourselves, and be helpful to other people as best we can. And from what I hear, you do that with your friends and people that you come in contact with. You're pretty outgoing, I understand, and helpful and kind, and not discriminating to less fortunate people. I think that you have a good sense of values, good values. And I think that's very important, good values. Looking at the person, looking at people for what they think and what they do in their lives and what they're made of, and instead of what position they have or what grades they have or what money they have, but appreciating them for other reasons. I think that's important.
Well, I think one is education is important. That's one of the advice. And the second one, that the other advice I would give is, I was fortunate that I came from a loving family, all my aunties and uncles, and the little bits of wisdom and the little bits of wisdom that they share with us, I know it's from my grandmother. So what do you say? One thing my grandma taught us, she always taught us, be proud you Hawaiian. Those were always her words to us. You know, when my grandma was alive and we used to get ready to go to church, she would always tell us, you put your head up high, you leave this house with your shoulders, you be proud you Hawaiian. That got us into plenty trouble too, because as Hawaiians we used to throw our shoulders around, right? Ready to fight anybody. That was words of wisdom that my grandma taught us. Be proud you're Hawaiian.